YouTube, welcome to the channel. And then on today's video we're going to be looking at this. It's an Airfix 1:76 scale starter set of a DUKW amphibious truck. Now I'm not sure if this is a new release by Airfix or it's an older moulding that's been re-released. I'm not 100% sure. But the subject matter did catch my eye because it's quite an unusual looking vehicle, this. The DUKW trucks were an American built truck. I think they were based on another 6x6 truck. I'm not sure which one. But they were obviously converted for amphibious operation, and they did play a pivotal role in things like the D-Day landings, etc. And they were quite numerous in the production. I think they even supplied 2,000 of these things to the UK under the Lend-Lease, so they made quite a few of them. But like I say, you don't see many kits available of these trucks as far as I'm aware, so it's going to be an interesting one, this. It looks fairly simplistic, but I'm quite looking forward to doing it. I am a big fan getting into these little starter sets because you can literally sit down with them. Everything's included, paints, brush, glue, etc. in the box, so you can sit down of an evening or when you've got a bit of spare time and just enjoy making a model with the contents of the box, really, which I just find quite refreshing. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's open her up and see what we get. Right then, in the box we get our paints. Now you get 4 paints and a tube of glue, some poly cement. We get a little Humbrol Airfix brush. It's normally a number 2, yes. We get some instructions, and these are far superior to the old Airfix instructions I remember. And we get the actual kit itself. Now, like I say, I wasn't sure whether it was a new moulding or a re-release of an older kit. Let's have a quick butchers. Oh God, get out of this. It does look fairly simplistic, I must admit. It's difficult to tell. I think it's possibly an older kit, this. I might be wrong. Somebody might, in the comments section, correct me. But it doesn't look as nicely moulded as some of the previous kits that I've done recently. There's quite a lot of flash on some of the parts, you know what I mean? So it's not as crisply moulded. But anyway, it's an interesting subject matter, and I'm quite looking forward to getting into it. There's a bit of glass there. Well, anyway, the first job is to wash all these sprues in some warm soapy water. The prop's damaged a little bit there. Because we need to, any releasing agent we need to get rid of, otherwise that acrylic paint doesn't like sticking to the plastic. So that's our first job. Give these a wash. Right, I've just washed all the parts in warm soapy water, just waiting for them to dry. While they were drying, I was just having a quick look at the instructions. It is fairly simplistic, this thing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes I did forget to mention you do get some decals with it as well, so we'll have to put those on right at the very end. So as soon as this thing is dried, I'll start to apply some paint. Having a good look over it, there is quite, I think this is an older moulding, there's quite a lot of flash over some of the parts, and that'll have to be trimmed. I've got a little craft knife that should do the job, but as I say, as soon as this is dried, we'll start applying some paint. Now, one tip I will give you about this acrylic paint is always check first before you start painting. I mean, I don't know if you can tell there, you can see how thick that is. That definitely wants some water adding to it just to thin it out a bit. So before you start painting, always check your acrylic paints. Okay, I've put an initial coat of paint on all the bits and pieces. I think I'm going to start to assemble this thing before I put another coat on. It does need another coat because I'm going to have to do a lot of trimming and sanding to get rid of the nastiness and the flash on all the parts. Paint wise, this isn't the best Airfix starter set I've ever tried. The main colour, 86, was absolutely abysmal. It was like a dried blob of pigment at the bottom of the tub. I've had to add loads of water to get it something like, and even then it's not gone on very well, I must admit. The other colour, 155, is it's almost grainy. It's horrible. I don't know if these are old paints or what. They've stood a while. The 33 and the 53 aren't too bad, but the sort of main 2 colours you need are pretty abysmal. I don't know if I've got a bad one or what. Anyway, let's start putting this thing together. Right, a little piece of advice before you start this kit. Make sure you've got a little craft knife of some description and a bit of sandpaper, because you will need it. I have cheated a little bit and super glued the hull sides on, because they don't fit properly and they kept trying to pull apart, and I was fed up of having to hold the damn things for half an hour while I wait till the poly cement to dry. So I put a little dab of super glue on them just to hold them together. Like this this kit is a bit rough and ready. You just have to take your time with it, and you're gonna have to do some trimming. I cannot get this front portion of the hull to fit correctly because these two location bars, I suppose they call them, I'm going to have to trim them off completely, because it doesn't fit. They don't fit on the inside of the two hull halves, unfortunately. Even though I've done a bit of trimming, I still can't get them to fit properly without there being a massive gap. So I'm going to trim them off completely using my craft knife and just glue this as best I can on top. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere with it now. I've pretty much completed the first step, which is the main portion of the hull. I'm a little bit undecided as yet as whether I want to put these wheel spats on. They are optional. I can't decide whether I want to actually see the wheels on this thing yet. So I might just assemble, put all the wheels on, etc., and then decide whether I want to cut them off, keep them off. But that's the next step. There is the axles and the propeller. Now I'm not looking forward to the propeller or the shaft, because it's very poorly moulded, and it really does look like a proper mess. So I'm not sure yet as how good I'm going to be able to get this thing. Anyway, we'll find out. Right, that's pretty much stage 2 done, just putting parts of the transmission and the wheels on. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but I did have to do quite a bit of trimming still, I must admit, because there's quite a lot of flash on several of the pieces. Still undecided as whether to leave the spats off or not. I do quite like seeing the wheels on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether they would have been taken off when the truck was not being used as an amphibious vehicle, so I'm tempted to leave them off, because I do quite like seeing the wheels, as I said. But I shall carry on. The next bit is stage 3, which is basically all the detail work on top, and some proper little fiddly parts on there. But anyway, going to crack on. So far, it's not too bad. Right, well, I've added the vast majority of the remaining bits and pieces to the actual truck itself. What I think I'm going to do now, before I fit the rest, is I'm going to put another coat of green paint on, just to cover up the marks that where I've removed flash, or where I've actually been holding this thing and the paint's come off. So I'm going to give it a quick coat of green paint, and then we're going to fit the rest of the bits and pieces. Right, I've put the remainder of the bits and pieces on it. The machine gun, the headlamps. The headlamps were a genuine faff, because you have to, I mean, they're minute, and you have to put the little lenses in. I just about managed to do it. My eyesight isn't getting any better, I must admit. But it's actually looking quite good. I'm quite impressed. I've just touched up a few areas with a paintbrush. I've painted the axe and the spade handle brown, and a couple of other bits and pieces I've just highlighted a different colour, just to make it look a little bit more interesting, really. So that's the model complete. Now the next job is to put the transfers on. If you're not familiar with these sort of transfers, I find it easiest to cut them up individually and use them individually. And obviously you've got the water transfers, so you have to immerse them in water, wait for the glue to dissolve slightly, and I find it easier to have a little cocktail stick to sort of manoeuvre them into position. But we'll go ahead and do that, put the transfers on, wait till they dry, then I think I'm going to attempt a sort of wash with this of some description, like I have the other models. But I know it's cheating, but they do look better if they're a little bit grubby. The spats I'm going to definitely leave off. I do like to see the wheels, there's no doubt about it, and there's a convenient carry or storage place for them underneath there if I don't glue the back down. So enough waffle, let's put the decals on. Okay, all the decals are on, and they're not the best, I must admit. It's the first time in a long time, I think I've had to abandon actually fitting a couple of them because it just simply didn't go on properly. There was one on the back really. I had to just chop the serial number off because they don't actually, they're a little bit too big for the spaces that they're supposed to be in. I don't know whether I might be able to trim them with a Stanley knife when they are dry, but the decals didn't go on very well at all, which is a shame really. But anyway, onwards and upwards. I'll wait till they dry. Like I say, I'm going to see if I can trim them slightly, possibly, and then we might be able to put a wash on. And I'm hoping that the wash, I might be able to put the wash over the decals, and we basically get rid of some of that silvering. I mean, you can see when you're applying it, it sort of pulls into the detail area, so it just brings out any detail you've got. But you can seriously overdo it if you're not careful. You've got to keep sort of working it into the bits you want to become a little bit more prominent and leave it. Okay, I've applied the wash, and although I've been a little bit heavy-handed in places, I'm not 100% happy with the canvas cover because that went a little bit funny as I was doing it. But it has had the effect of sort of toning down all the transfers and getting rid of a little bit of that silvering as well, which I'm very pleased about. So I'm going to wait for the actual contrast to dry, and then I'm going to put a little bit of a dry brush of silver over the bits that I think that would get the most wear, and then we're pretty much done. Right, the wash is pretty much dried. I'm going to attempt to do a little bit of dry brushing now using the Silver 53. If you're not familiar with dry brushing, basically it's a technique where you can bring out detail, etc., by essentially brushing a colour over the edges of the model. In this case we're going to use silver, but you've got to basically remove the vast majority of the paint off the brush. The brush is virtually dry, hence the term dry brushing. Now you can go too far with this and it can look like a horrible mess, and it's a little bit hit and miss sometimes whether I get this right, but it can make a massive difference to the way the model looks and really bring out the detail that's in the surface. But anyway, enough waffle, let's give it a go. Right, even after all my years of experience making models and dry brushing, I still occasionally get that portion wrong, and this is a prime example. I thought there was a lot less paint on the brush than is apparent on the model, unfortunately. It doesn't look too bad, but it's just everywhere really. I've made a right mess of it. But unfortunately, it does happen. I mean, like I say, I'm not an expert, and I do make mistakes occasionally, and the dry brushing is my least favourite bit, even though it can make a real difference to making the model pop. But this time I've made a bit of a hash of it, unfortunately. You probably can't pick it up on camera, I don't know, but it's a bit heavy. Okay then, that's pretty much the model finished. So what did we think of Airfix's DUKW 1/76 scale starter set? Well, the paint in my particular kit was pretty horrible, I must admit. I really had to work at it in order to get it to go on the model evenly. The decals did leave a lot to be desired. It's the first time I've had to omit certain decals because I just could not get them to fit the surface of the model. You could get some decal softener, etc., but that's not the point in a starter set really. Everything's got to be in the box. And the actual moulding and the model itself, although it went together okay, there's plenty of flash on everything, and I did have to trim lots of parts in order to get them to fit. And the detail isn't great. I mean, the machine gun mount on the top looks a bit odd. It's just a bit too chunky and not very finely moulded. And like I say, the rest of the kit really does leave a lot to be desired. It's really showing its age. That said, would I actually recommend this kit to you guys? I'm going to say absolutely yes, because I still had fun making it. You know, if I was starting out, I'd probably find something a little bit newer, a little bit easier to get on with. This would probably put you off for life. I've made a few mistakes on it, like being too heavy-handed with the dry brushing at the end. But apart from that, I think I've ended up with a reasonable representation of a duck, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself to boot. Anyway, if you found the video of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button for more similar future content. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again very soon. Thank you.